In about an hour and a half, the Senate will hold a vote to end debate and for the purpose of voting on H.R. 5746, the so-called Freedom to Vote Act. But the vote is a setup to change Senate rules.
This partisan Frankenstein bill that House Democrats slapped together was intended to do one thing, just one thing only: give the Senate Democratic leader a pretext to break the Senate.
When that vote fails, Democrats are then expected to push for a change to Senate rules to require a talking filibuster on bills in the Senate. Joining me now to give us the latest from what is happening in the Senate chamber on Capitol Hill is Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, who serves on 4 Senate committees, including the Judiciary Committee and the Armed Services Committee. Senator, welcome back to the program.
It is good to be with you. Thank you. And it really is an interesting day here in D.C. You're right about that.
Before we dive into what's taking place there in the Senate chamber, even as we speak, your thoughts on President Biden's press conference today?
The press conference is pretty much as expected. He wanted to claim that he has had a magnificent, wonderful year. But indeed, the first year of this Biden administration has been a failure. Joe Biden has turned himself into a lame duck. And as you well know, they realize they've got a very short window. They're going to lose the elections in November. So now they're trying to force feed their radical socialist agenda to the American people, and the American people are standing up and saying, no, we don't want anything to do with this. So it's made for an interesting week here in D.C.
For almost every question asked, the fingers point to coronavirus as the source of the problem. The president pointing to that as the reason that we're seeing inflation as the supply chain is messed up because of the coronavirus. But one of the issues, and I know you have been on this from the very beginning, last month the president announcing that he is going to be distributing 500 million in-home test kits. And then we find out these kits are coming from China.
That is right. When you look at the fact that China will not take any responsibility for COVID-19, when everybody knows, the World Health Organization knows, it started in Wuhan, and everyone agrees that it is very likely that it did come from that lab. So those are things where you can say, okay, that is something people recognize. We also know China is carrying out a genocide against the Muslim Uyghurs. We know that they have gone after the Tibetans, the Mongolians, the Hong Kong freedom fighters. We know that they're using slave labor to make product that is sold not only in the U.S., but around the globe. We know that the Chinese Communist Party is intent on global domination by the time we get to the mid-century. Donald Trump held China to account. He did it with sanctions. He did it with trade. He did it with great power competition. They knew that Donald Trump was going to be tough on them. They do not fear Joe Biden. They see him as weak, as feckless. They see him as ineffective in his approach. And so what they see is somebody who's giving them runway to go expand their global reach. Now, China benefited from COVID-19 in a myriad of ways, and now insult to injury, instead of U.S. companies making these test kits that the federal government is buying, who are they buying them from? The communist Chinese. It's just unbelievable, Tony. And I have heard from so many people that they're just outraged that this is a product made in China that they're going to be forced to use to see if they're able to go to work. And if they didn't get vaccinated, they're going to lose their job. And again, who benefits? The communist Chinese.
Well, to further spotlight that, last week on the House floor, there's a new rule in place that you have to wear a KN95 mask, and they were passed out to members. And on the mask, it says "Made in China." Is this? Does this? I mean, it's absurd on its face, but does this highlight an underlying problem of our dependence upon China for these types of personal protective devices, and now these in-home test?
Actually, prior to COVID-19, Senator Menendez and I had filed legislation, and it would require our active pharmaceutical ingredient manufacturing to return to the US because that's a critical supply chain issue for us. And then COVID happens, then people realize, there was going to be trouble getting what we needed to fight COVID. And to create a vaccine, to create therapies and pharmaceuticals. And subsequent to that, you also have other members that have pushed to return manufacturing of this personal protective equipment, of other supply chain items that are needed, like semiconductor chips, because we are far too dependent on China. Yeah. And it's why we have legislation that would return much of this advanced manufacturing to the US. It's not going to be quick and easy. It is something that takes years, not months. It takes a couple of months to stand up some of these plants to create pharmaceutical ingredients. It takes a while to retool plants for protective equipment. But the point is this: we have to use this as a realization that we cannot depend on China. Now, this administration is trying to make it a permanent pandemic. We are trying to say we have to learn how to live with this and be responsible in how we respond.
Right. I just think it's outrageous that a country that, like Communist China, the Communist Chinese Party, that was irresponsible in releasing this virus upon the world and not responding in a timely fashion, that now they're benefiting from it. It's just totally outrageous, especially when it's money coming from the U.S. government. I got to turn now very quickly, Senator, to what's happening in the Senate. Tell us the political theater, what's going to be playing tonight there in the Senate. What's going to happen?
All day, you've had senators on the floor. The Democrats are saying, we have to have this election reform bill, which is federalizing of elections. At 6:30, they will call the vote on the cloture motion. It will fail. After that, as you mentioned, they will go to a motion to change the filibuster rule to require a talking filibuster. That is going to fail. And at that point, we anticipate that the argument will end for the current time. But Tony, it's important that your viewers all realize this is far from over. The Democrats know they're going to lose the midterm elections. Barack Obama had said when he took office, he wanted to radically transform this country. They thought Hillary Clinton would win. They'd be able to finish the transformation. Donald Trump won, and they're further from it than ever. And the American people are pushing back. So I encourage people to reach out to their elected officials. You don't want the elections to be federalized. You don't want the federal government to have control of your life 24/7, daylight to dark. You don't want them to have control of your children's life. You don't want them to limit your religious freedom. So people need to speak up, stand up.
I don't think we want a one-party system in this country, and I think this is what their federal takeover elections would lead to. One final question for you, Senator Blackburn. Normally what I've watched historically here is bills don't come to the floor for a vote unless they have the votes lined up, because it shows weakness of the party leadership. But we're seeing this repeatedly in the Senate, where Chuck Schumer's pushing this forward, knowing they don't have the votes. What's going on here?
He is fearful of a primary opponent from AOC. So he's trying to prove to the left that he is going to fight for them every single day. So what he is in essence doing is having his members walk the plank and take these tough votes so that he can protect his political self. And that is what he is up to, trying to prove that he is willing to blow up the Senate, blow up the rule of law, blow up the courts, in order to get this socialist agenda through and radically transform this country.
All about personal political survival. That is amazing, really is. Senator Marsha Blackburn, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for stopping by today.
You got it. Take care.
All right.